Let's talk a little debate, because I was listening to the pod this morning. You are fascinated with pre-debate pregame shows. It sounds like. Is this a new guilty pleasure of yours?
Yeah, and the reporting, because it's just like reporting before the Super Bowl, where you do game plans on both sides and you do a little nugget about prep. And then the New York Times even had a thing that Kamala Harris was going to have to shake the rust off because she hadn't debated since 2020, which sounded like we held her out the entire preseason because we didn't want her to get injured. Now we're throwing her in. Week one.
O-line's not ready, yeah.
Yeah. Is that a little familiar?
All right. I'll leave this one open-ended. What did you think?
I thought Kamala Harris came in. I just feel like I'm just sounding like football coach. Now you're in my head because I talked about Brady like a player, and I'm going to say Kamala Harris game plan, execute the plan.
She took some shots, some deep shots, aggressive.
We were talking about this on the pod this morning, but it was amazing. Like when you have one of those game plans where you're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come out and we're going to try to throw some bait out that's going to get Trump distracted. This is what we're going to do. Like this is every pundit show, every one of those articles that would have been in the article. And then she came out last night and she was like, okay, immigration, tough issue for me. Let me just start talking about Trump's rallies and people walking out of his rallies, because he's going to come back. And instead of talking about one of his biggest and most successful issues, according to every poll, he'll just jump on that. And it was one of those cases, Ryan, where you're like, the game plan was announced. It's almost like you had just called the plays publicly in advance, and then it all worked. So that to me was almost the most startling thing of the whole night.
I thought she did better. I thought you could tell that he was a bit rattled and prepared, though, when he wanted to go to that line, her line of like, I'm talking now. And the way he used it just wasn't timed right. But in that moment, you're like, he's been thinking about this. It was part of his prep. He was going to say it to try to kind of shut her down a little bit. And his use of it. No, I don't know. I thought she kind of started off a little shaky, and then I think she just handled herself better throughout the entire time. Now, the complaints about the moderators fact checking in real time. Your thoughts?
Didn't have a problem with the fact checks, because the stuff that was fact checked was outlandish things. These were not like, hey, actually, your tax plan would not return X billions of dollars to the U.S. Treasury. It would return this many. It was not that kind of stuff. It was like the election was stolen level fact checks. I think there's a complaint about the moderators that was valid, is they didn't force her or try to force her to answer questions in the same way they did with Donald Trump. A few times with Trump, they asked a question, he talked about something else, and they came back and said, no, actually what we asked was this. There were a couple of times where she did, again, this is what politicians do in a debate, right? You ask me a question, I answer the question I wish you had asked me, or I talk about what I want to talk about. They didn't really come back to her that many times and just be like, so for the record. So if I thought there was any complaint about the debate, about the mods, that was it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. I noted, like, on the first one, I went, whoa. Like, I think it was Lindsay who came back at Trump and was just like, nope. And it was like a jarring thing at one point. And you thought, okay, that's a little bit different. I think the frustration for anybody, anyone that's a voter, is that you're right. It's always kind of been like this, right? It has always been, well, you can ask me whatever you want, but I'm just going to pivot and avoid and then hammer my talking points. And, you'd like to think that if it's two people that are supposed to be serving the citizens of the country, that would be the moment to try to convince people which way they want to go, right? And I wonder if you're a former President Trump, a vice president in Harris, it's like, I don't care who you put at that desk. Like, there's going to be no one at that desk that I'm going to respect so much that you're going to get me off of my game plan. And so when you're home and you're watching it, and it's not so much that people are lying left and right. It's just that it kind of gets back to my Sam Hinkie thing, where when Sam Hinkie was tanking, he was so unapologetic about it that it cost him his job. where he probably could have signed a Carlos Boozer. He could have pretended a little bit more, even though all of us know what he was actually doing. We have a hard time with someone being just blunt about it. So I would love, because as much as I could try to read anything that has nothing to do with sports, like I'm more confused now than I've ever been, because I'll say, well, hey, that doesn't make any sense. Like I'll look up crime rates. Like I'll just be randomly going, is it really up? And then I'll find 5 or 6 different things, and I'm more confused than when I started the process. I remember reading, and I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but like I remember seeing this stat where there was some crime, this specific active crime, and it had increased by 300% in like the last year. I'm like, that's an astonishing number. And I'd heard someone say it, and I was like, is that possibly true? So I dug into it, and then I looked, and whatever this active crime was, it was 8 instances opposed to 2 the year before. And I thought, all right, well, that 300% increase number is far more impactful than from 2 to 8, which is what the real number was. And again, I know the math doesn't even match up because it doesn't really matter. So when you're sitting there as somebody that would like to be knowledgeable about things, it's really hard to keep up. And yet when you dig for the research, you don't even know if anybody's leading you in the right direction. And it'll kind of get back to like, what would happen if a candidate just said, you know what, I don't know. I don't even know if we can, I don't know if we can solve this Ukraine thing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't listen to us. I just don't, I don't think we could do it. Would that be the end of a candidate instead of like, hey, instead of Ukraine, I'll just blame them? And like, it's an incredibly frustrating 90 minutes to think of this is where we're at. But I'll finish here. If we got what we say we want, would we actually be way worse? If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I threw a lot at you there, so it's just me kind of talking here.
It's maybe one of those cases where what we say we want, if we got it, we would be unsatisfied and be like, well, why didn't they just, go through the talking points? I mean, I think that the point you raised at the beginning of that is something I was thinking about last night. It's like we reward politicians for executing talking points. We reward them a lot of the time. And I'm saying we as in the media, not voters so much. But you say, well, they stayed on message. They did what they were supposed to do. And again, remember, everybody is thinking about Kamala Harris in the light of what Joe Biden was unable to do a couple of months ago. He wasn't able to just come out and be like, here is what I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So her coming out and doing that last night, everybody said, oh wow, she showed that she's on message. She can drive a message. I saw that phrase on Twitter last night. That's weird, right? I mean, you're already going away from the idea of like, she's coming out and giving us, or he, because I don't want to spare Trump from this, coming out and giving us an accurate picture of what they're going to do as president, or what's possible for them to do as president. I mean, but that's the way the media works when it comes to politics. That's just the way it is, right? You're scoring them on their ability to perform things, rather than, an answer that is, oh, that's a great answer. That is a great, honest answer about this very difficult issue in front of us.
I don't know what his prep was, but even if he had a strategy or if he had a plan, you would have thought, because again, I'm getting way off the topic here. I'm reading Pax. I'm finishing it up right now, right? A stretch of the Roman Empire. It's the latest from Holland. Okay. They went through, I think, 4 different versions of rulers. Some of the titles may not be the same. So you're reading about one regime. It's like, nah, let's kill this guy. And it's like, fucking awesome. We killed him. Change. And then that guy's killed. I think they go through like 4 dudes in a 2-year stretch. And every transition of power is met with celebration. And as you read it, you think, are you guys sensing a pattern here? Okay. Are you sensing a pattern? And for, I don't know how many years, maybe it's much longer, or whatever my awareness investment in it was to consistently be running on, well, whatever just happened, we're not doing that again. Like, I just, but I don't know if that's because of us, right? would we ever be at a point in this country where you'd have a candidate be like, things have been pretty good. Three of the last 4 years, pretty good. One down year, but 3 of 4, we'll take it. 75% hit rate. Let's just keep this thing rolling. I think it's impossible. You could not campaign that way because we probably always think things are getting worse.
It's funny though. We've had a lot of incumbents elected president, right? It went Clinton, it went Bush, and went Obama. So they were able in their reelection campaign to go, more good than bad. A lot of good.
Yeah, but do you think that was what the message was, or was it either an improvement? Yeah, right.
It was. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Yeah, answer yes. Vote for me. Let's go. The one. I'll tell you what's interesting that scrambles this one is that they're both trying to cast the other one as the incumbent, and you saw that last night. Harris saying over and over again, "Let's not get back. We got to turn the page." And Trump finally, sort of at the end of the debate, sort of scrambling and saying, hey, you wait a second, you're in office. You are the vice president of the United States. Why haven't you done this for 3.5 years? And so it was like actually two different strategies of trying to do the same thing.
This is going to get real stereotypical here, but I'm finishing up Pax, Holland's new one, on a stretch of the Roman Empire. And first 300 pages of the book or so, I think they go through like 4 different rulers in the span of less than 2 years. And every regime change, every transition is met with celebration. And by like the 4th one that I've read, I go, are you guys sensing any kind of pattern here? Are you sensing anything? And I think as far as like Trump on strategy, he's not going to listen to anybody. They can come up with a strategy. He's not going to follow it. He's just going to go with his gut. I think he's probably impossible to prep with. And the fact that his closing message was probably the message you thought like, well, that's the easiest thing. This is you're debating a candidate who's talking about change, who was already there. Like this is a really simple playbook, and he wasn't capable. He just couldn't figure that part of it out, and it made me wonder if, again, I'm not trying to relate the Roman Empire to today, but that no matter who is in power, do we always think it's getting worse?
It certainly seems like that recently. And this is after we had 3 presidents in a row serve 2 terms and we're able to sell that. But, that was actually the most fascinating part of the debate, or one of the most last night, was when they were both casting each other as the incumbent president.
That's such a good point.
As you said, Trump at the end finally gets to, hey, you've been in office for 3.5 years. Why don't you just go do this stuff? Whereas you heard Harris the whole debate, turn the page. We got to do something new. We can't go back to this, right? No, Mr. Trump, you are the president. You're the guy we're trying to move on from. And it was like this battle to see who wasn't the incumbent.
Do you watch all the post-debate stuff?
I did last night. Absolutely.
Okay.
I thought
let me offer up
Go ahead.
Okay, go. No, just go, and then I'll have something.
My first nugget is I thought of Bill immediately because we had like the Anderson Cooper 15-person set that looked like a football preseason team photo. Like where's David Axelrod? Is he in there somewhere on the left-hand side? Oh, there he is. Let's go. I mean, talk about something. We're talking about Kevin Burkhardt and Mike Tirico. How do you manage a panel with 15 people? I mean, that's something.
I tried to do it. It was a disaster. It was the college football seminars up in Connecticut before the season would start. And obviously, I still remember this today because it pissed me off so bad. They put 12 people in front of me. So I asked Herb Street a question, and I think Herb Street kind of jumped in on the second answer. And this programming guy from college football stood up in front of the entire theater. It's like 200 people in there, and went, hey, don't leave. You got to get to some of these other guys too. Scolded me in front of the room of all of my colleagues. And I was, wow. I'll tell you right now, I've never forgotten that. Fuck that guy forever.
See, these are the calls I usually get offline on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning from you.
I'm sitting there going, you gave me 12 people, man. I'm 7 minutes in. Herb Street is a thoughtful cat. What do you want me to do? So, here's what I would offer up. I'm not offended politically. I'm offended as a content person. To recap whatever happened last night and just say your team won is not impressive content to me. Okay. If LeBron James were to lose in the NBA Finals and Nick Wright starts his first show going, let me tell you why this is actually better for LeBron's legacy. That is not impressive to me. I already know what you're going to do. You're going to figure out a way to execute it. So whether it's last night's debate or any of this stuff, when I look at the reaction, I'm offended by how impressed so many political commentators are with their ability to execute the fucking summary I already knew was coming. What is wrong with those people? And when will they come to the conclusion that they are not that good at what they do?
Totally agree. Also, a lot of monologuing. Did you notice after the debate?
I couldn't.
It wasn't a tight 20.
Look, if you're listening to this thinking you're getting a lean, the lean is against unimpressive content. That's the lean.
It was weird. CNN went to it, and it was just Jake Tapper looking into a camera, like, one of us would record some content for social, just kind of doing a riffing on the debate. I'm like, what is happening right now? And then eventually they pulled out, and there were people around him. That was jarring for me. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a great time.
Like, do they think they're killing it? That's where I'm offended.
Yes.
Like, when I have a bad show, I'm like, you suck. Bad interview. Terrible. Okay. When I think I do something well, I'm like, hey, that was good. That's why you lift all those weights. That's why you get up every day. That's why you got legal pads all over the house. But when I see this predictable stuff, and I think, is like, do you think and again, maybe it gets back to it. Is that the job? Is that the job?
I think it is. And I think just like sports TV, it's kind of the grammar of political TV, of cable news. And we're all just so ingrained into it that we don't even notice. Like, oh, somebody's looking at their phone and reading quotes from the transcript. This is good. Really good stuff.
All right, last question. Immigration was a topic last night. Would Dabo Swinney be the best college football coach to fix the immigration thing right now?
I was so curious where you were going with the second half of that question. Is he the only person?
Dabo just gets up there. He's like, we're not taking anybody. Deal with
it. You're the only person who went NIL with immigration last night. Transfer portal, excuse me. But that's connected, right? You gotta buy it.
It's all.
You're not getting them for free, Ryan, through the transfer portal.
I didn't mean to fact check you.
That was an instant fact check right there for Curtis.